Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billah min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan 'abduhu wa rasuluh sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tamassak bi sunnatihi ila yawmiddin, amma ba'd. So again, that I'm with you, and inshallah ta'ala, that we'll be now today hoping to start the actual lesson, which is Thalatha Usool. And in the lesson that we had the last month, that we discussed the introduction regarding something regarding the author, and also regarding concerning the importance of ilm, and also something in brief regarding the book. So and then also the thing that we were to come to a conclusion regarding what book to use regarding this particular lesson. As we mentioned, that there are many explanations regarding this particular book, but it's to find the most suitable one regarding to be used. The one that we use on the main material is not per se in English, and the reason why I've chosen this one is that it's in a format of question and answers. It's in a format of question and answers. So because of a lot of the youngsters that are with us, so we'll be approaching this by way of question and answer. What is this? And then we'll give the answer. So it's somewhat you can register, and also you can. We ask that you bring your pens and paper or books, so you can take the notes. So it'll be a somewhat more simpler system rather than I just giving information, but it'll be done same giving information, but by way of questions and answers. So one of the ulama that have give attention to this particular book, is this particular explanation that he had called Tasheel Al-Usool Al-Thalatha Usool. Tasheel Al-Usool. So easy method of bringing forth or explaining this book by way of question and answers. So inshallah ta'ala, last lesson we discussed about the author and the book. As for today, we'll go straight into the book inshallah ta'ala. So as we said, that it's important that we have our pens and also our books, not just paper, because sometimes you write things on paper, they get lost. So I have a book specifically just for this lesson. And as we said, at some point we'll ask question. So as for the book, the author rahimahullah, in this particular explanation, he started with the first question. So the book is divided in a certain way. There's an introduction, a few introduction, before the author goes into the actual main part of the book. So there's an introduction, several of them, kind of somewhat lead the person up towards what he intends to discuss. So we have preparing the person, the student, regarding this particular book and the matter to be discussed. So as for starting, he started out with Bismillah wa bihi nasta'in wa salat wa salam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajmahin. Then he mentioned al-masail al-arba. So based upon the system of this book, he started out first by discussing 4 masail. So the author right there mentioned ma al-masail al-arba allati yajib ala kulli muslim ala kulli insan yata'allamuha. So the first question, so those who are writing, and I said those who are not writing for today, kind of somewhat try to keep up with us. We might sometimes ask the question to be repeated. Now, so the first question that he asked is that he mentioned mal masail. What are the 4 matters? What are the 4 matters that is compulsory upon each person to know? What's the 4 matters? They mentioned masail. We use the word matters that each person must know. Then he mentioned regarding the answer. So what he discussed first regarding that particular question, what's the 4 matters that each person must know? He used the word yajib. ما المسائل الأربع التي يجب. What's those 4 matters that each person must know? And the word yajib that is related to the word wajib, the ulama, they use this particular word and it carries a specific, a particular meaning. Mean that thing which is compulsory, or that thing is a must to be done. What does this mean in Islam? When a person says something is a must to be done, this thing it is, you must do it. What does that, what does the person actually means? With me? What does that mean? This thing has to be done. What does it mean? When a person say this to you, you must pray. What you understand from this?
It's a command.
Huh?
It's a command.
It's a command from
Allah.
Okay. So it's a must. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so every command from Allah is a must to be done?
Yeah.
Okay. Because without my glasses. So on the other side. So what's your name, Akh?
Omar.
Omar.
Yeah.
Okay, we share same names, so I wouldn't forget you. So the next, so we're discussing what's the word yajib, compulsory, means. Over here, you must pray, you must fast. What does this mean? Who on this side want to volunteer? When a person says something is a must to be done, what does this mean? What you understand from this? Aywa?
It's obligatory.
Okay.
We're rewarded if we do it.
Okay.
Sinned if we don't.
Okay. Partly right. Partly right. The ulama of Usool Al-Fiqh, when they discuss concerning what they class as ahkam al-shar'iyyah, they mention that of those words that are used within this group of things that they refer to as ahkam al-shar'iyyah, Islamic rulings, that wajib is one of them. And yes, sometimes they will define it in a maybe a simple way, that if this act, if it is done, you're rewarded, and if it is not done, then you fall into sin, right? But it said that the more correct definition of wajib is something that the legislator requires you to fulfill by way of compulsion. Something required for you to fulfill by the legislator, who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by way of compulsion. If it is carried out, you gain a reward and you've done something praiseworthy. And if it is not done, if it is not carried out, then you fall into doing something which is blameworthy. With me? So again, when we say compulsory, what is the understanding? It is something that the legislator requires us to do by way of compulsion. If it is carried out, done, the person is rewarded. If it is not carried out, not done, then the person falls in a what? A sin. That is compulsory. Give me an example. Something based upon the definition I just gave. That is something, an act which is considered to be wajib. It is something that the creator, the legislator, who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have instructed us to do that act. If it is done by way of compulsion, if it is done, you are rewarded. If it is missed, you fall into sin and do something which is blameworthy. Give an example. A salah. So salat is something which the legislature requires us to do as a part of the pillars of Islam. If the person carries out that act, does that act, he is rewarded. If the person does not do that act, then he falls into a sin. Taib. So he mentioned, as for those four matters that one should be aware of and should know as an introduction, the first of the author, he starts with, is ilm. Before we even explain these matters, also some other matters to take into account. Before we go, give the answer, there are some other matters to take into account. And there are three things that we'll mention. Are the first, why do we study At-Tawheed wal-Aqidah? As this book relates to that subject of discussing matter concerning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, matter that relates to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and matters regarding Aqidah, the Muslim belief. Why do we study these things? What's the importance? What's the benefit of studying books of this nature or of this topic? The ulama have mentioned many reasons, the virtues and the benefit of studying books in Aqidah, and also in Islam in general. Of those things regarding books in Aqidah in particular and books of Tawheed in particular regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's oneness, one of the reasons why we study these books, one, as mentioned, لأن الله خلقنا من أجل ذلك, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created us for that purpose, which is to establish His oneness or His Tawheed, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we are created to establish Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's worship. So of the things that we have to have in place is to know who's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that we wish, the one that we have to worship. Then we have to know who's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of the purpose behind studying at-Tawheed, that one, fulfill the purpose behind why we are created, to fulfill the purpose behind why we are created. Second, that for an act to be deemed acceptable with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the person must be of the people of Al-Tawheed. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept any act as being good and sound, the person carrying out that act must be a person whom is of Tawheed. As the reason being, for an act to be acceptable with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's two things that must be in place. Who knows those two things? For an act to be acceptable with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from His creature, from mankind, there's two things that must be in place. What are they?
It needs to be insane, what's the word?
Sanity.
Sanity.
So one, for an act to be deemed acceptable with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the person must be of sanity. That's one that is put forward. Have to have sincerity. That's another that is put forward. Any others? And niyyah. Aywa. So putting all those together, concerning an-niyyah and sincerity, they go together. Al-ikhlas and niyyah. So the person's intention must be sincere. So the person one, and that sincerity of intention, that at-tawheed, al-ikhlas. So the person carrying out that act only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the first condition for act to be deemed acceptable with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the person, the doer, must ensure that his intention is focused. And that is what? I'm doing this act for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, no one else. I'm not doing the salat because my mother said I should do it, my father said I should do it, my wife said I should do it, my husband, because of this person or that person. No. The person is doing it because he's trying to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's one of the conditions. The second condition is what?
Has to be in accordance with the right way.
Aywa. So have to be in accordance with the right way, and the right way is the sunnah wa sharia. Any act that we do must be done in a particular way. So I'm going to pray. I can't just put my hand on my head and I consider it to be salat. That's not the way. So each person, if we decide, okay, each person pray how you think best. In the masjid, we'll have 100 different ways. So to make everything in a somewhat structured manner, that structure regarding how we should function and carry out, do things, is according to the sunnah. Muwafiq lis sunnah, ittiba' as sunnah. So the Prophet Islam, his example become the example for everyone to follow. And doing an act according to the Prophet Islam example and how he did things, then that is falling in line with how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes for the act to be done. So ensuring the act we're doing, it fall in line with the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So that's concerning, that's the second reason behind studying Aqidah and Tawheed, to make sure that the act is accepted with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of the reasons, others that I mentioned, that by having Tawheed, that's of the sabab, the reason are concerning that by Tawheed, it allows the person to enter Jannah. It allows the person to enter Al-Jannah, as the only people to enter Jannah is the people of Tawheed. If you do not believe in Allah, mean Tawheed, the people who believe in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the condition to enter Al-Jannah. You have to establish Tawheed in your life. Without Tawheed, meaning you're upon something other than Tawheed, then you are disqualified from entering Jannah. So that's how many conditions we mentioned? Three. Also, of the other reasons, they mention that also by having Tawheed in place, as to be discussed, then also with Tawheed, it also it expiates the person's sin. So being the person of Tawheed, certain things that we do, sins, they are expiated because Tawheed is in place. You believe in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also with that, it raised the person darajat, it raised the person's status and place with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by being of the people of Tawheed. So these are some of the reason behind studying Tawheed and Aqidah. Some, and there are others. The second matter also, as the Prophet introduction, why we have chosen, with a good choice, this particular book to study. Why we go about choosing a particular book to study in our masajid. And what's the process in choosing the right book. Because there's many books out there relating to Islam, written by Muslim, even non-Muslim. So the Muslim, in trying to preserve Islam, his Islam, our religion, then we have to know how to navigate through what is out there in the public. There's things that is said to be of Islam that in truth and in fact not of Islam, doesn't represent Islam. Is that correct? Is that correct, Omar? You had a question? What I just said? I know. So, of the things we find many people out there saying they represent Islam, isn't it? And sometimes we find people, as we mentioned, sometimes their way of representing Islam, we have to look at it and weigh it out. Is that correct? Is that really Islam? You want to kill people unjustly? You want to blow people up? Is that Islam? Innocent people? So there are those people who are Muslim or identified with Islam, but what they represent we have to look at it to see, is that actually representing Islam? Yes or no? And sometimes it's a no. And we have those people also who say we represent Islam, but they don't pray, they don't fast, they go to the pub and they say, I'm Muslim because my name is Omar. With me? But a person say, my name is Omar, but he doesn't pray, doesn't fast, goes to rave. You know rave? You know raving?
Sweets.
Rave is sweet. Okay, if not sweet, it'll be good. Going to parties, right? Pubbing. So such a person, but a person don't. So is that out to represent Islam just by name? So we say we have to navigate, make decisions regarding how to represent Islam correctly. And that requires that we have the correct understanding of Islam. So it means that if we choose, you're going to invite this person or that person to come to your locality, to your masjid, or within your masjid. There must be a process of how to select the right material to use. Isn't it? So you have to have a system in place. You invite a person to come to your masjid to teach. He just bring any book and teach. that sometimes the book, you may not be familiar with the book, and maybe things in that book that needs to be looked into. So having the correct process in selecting and choosing the right book to teach. The Muslim in general, whether in this masjid or anywhere else. So the ulama, they have given some guidelines regarding how to make such decision for going through that process. In choosing a book, of the thing to look at, one, the author, the person who have authored this book, the writer of this book. Is he a person who is a person that is qualified to discuss this particular topic? Is the person qualified to discuss and write about this topic? So looking to see, who is this person? Is he qualified? And that's a requirement regarding Islamic knowledge, that the person who wishes to deliver information about Islam, wish to teach, then he must have some qualifications. Isn't it? Isn't it? What's your name, Akh?
Omar.
Amar. Amar or Omar?
No, Omar.
Amar, هذا Omar. So there must be a what? A process of what? Choosing the correct book. And of the first process is looking at the author. By way of, is he qualified or not? And that the same thing regarding the person who comes to teach you, is he, the teacher, qualified or not? If he's qualified, then yes, you can attend his lesson. If he's not qualified, then no, you shouldn't attend his lesson, because that will lead to problems later on. It will lead to problem later on. So it's the first process of selecting, choosing books is regarding looking at the author, and is he qualified. The second matter is regarding that the author is of the people of the Sunnah. Is a person who is known to be of the people of the Sunnah. Not people who are known who are have gone away from the Sunnah in whatever form or shape. So a person who uphold, that person, the author, is known to uphold the Sunnah and live his life according to the Sunnah. So he must be a person of the Sunnah. With me? Mean upon Islam correctly. The third thing is that also look at regarding the information in the book. Examining the information within the book. And that may varies from one book to another. But the first process regarding examining, critiquing, checking the information in the book is to see, generally, is the information in the book correct? The correctness of the information within this book. And also with each book to see, as to be, so regarding the correctness of the information within this book. That a person, he used proper sources regarding the information. And also that the book that we are using or being used, that it suits the audience. Because you have some books for people who are on an advanced level, that were to teach those books, then we'll leave everyone behind. So not the book that it suits the people that it is to be addressing. And the fourth thing regarding that book is that what have been said by way of the ulama regarding that book. Have the ulama said positive things about the book or otherwise? So that's concerning. So I said, as for the book that have been chosen by yourself, then you have made a good choice. The book Thalatha Usool is a good choice, as in that book is a book as for beginners, to give you the main usul regarding matters concerning at-Tawheed. So regarding, back to the question that we started with. Back to the question that we started with. What's the question? What's the question? What's the question?
What are the 4 matters that are compulsory?
A. Jade. The first, Al-Ula, Al-Ilm. The first is knowledge. Ilm. The first of those things, of the 4 matters, the first of the 4 matters, the first being ilm. Then the author, rahimahullah, he explained ilm as huwa, that knowledge, what is intended by knowledge, what is intended by knowledge in this context, it is knowing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ma'rifatullah, knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wa ma'rifatu nabihi. Second, so ilm, he puts it into 3 categories. First, knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is A. B, knowing his Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. And C, knowing the deen of Islam with evidence. So knowledge is explained in those 3 ways, or regarding 3 things. Knowledge of whom? First, knowing whom?
Allah.
Knowing Allah. The second, knowing your Prophet. And third, knowing Islam, the deen of Islam, the religion of Islam, with evidence. With evidence. Question. What's evidence? When we say something is an evidence, my young man, stand up, because I can't. What's your name? Zidan. Okay, Zidan. What is evidence? Proof. Good. So once person says something is a proof, what would be the source that you will look for, you expect, when I say that's a proof? Where would I look for a proof? From the person, yeah. Jade. How to put it another way? What are the source of proof that we use in Islam to come to a conclusion about a matter? What is that question now for the adults? So this one, this is for the adults. What's the sources of proof in Islam? This is for the adults.
Hadith books and Quran.
Hadiths?
Hadith and Quran.
Hadiths and Quran. Ijma, we discussed that before, isn't it? Naam. So said the proof, when a person says something by way of proof, evidence, in Islam, adilla, dalil, it goes back to Quran, as-sunnah, wal-ijma. I will mention that before. So Quran, known, as-sunnah, going back to the Prophet ﷺ, being authentic sunnah, and third of the sources is al-ijma. I will mention what is ijma, a consensus amongst the ulama on a particular matter. So a matter may be established or everyone is in agreement. So that also strengthens that thing is that particular matter. So that's, and from mentioning the third point regarding that, these things of Islam are known by way of dalil, evidence. It opens our eyes that the Muslim, that he feels more at ease when you know that this thing that I'm doing or not doing, why am I doing it? Because I'm instructed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's evidence to back up the reason behind my action. So when a person does something based upon some type of dalil, evidence, he feel more at ease, feel more confident in himself that what I'm doing, it is based upon evidence. It goes back to a source, Islamic source. And also, knowing of a dalil, it removes the person of falling into blind following of others. You're doing something but don't know what's the evidence for what I'm doing. I was just told by the sheikh to do this, to run down the road. But he didn't explain to me why am I running down the road and not walking. Or an example, why did I read Al-Fatiha in the Salat? Is it because my sheikh said so? Or this person said so? So when a person know of things of adillah or evidence, it helps the person to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala correctly, based upon things that are done, knowing the reason and the source of it. So removal of blind following of others. So that's concerning the first of the things that he mentioned. And those matters, those three matters, will be covered more in detail later as their own separate topics. The second of the four matters that author rahimahullah he mentioned, the second is concerning al-amal bihadha ilm, acting in accordance to the knowledge you have. Acting in accordance to the knowledge that you have of Islam. That's the second of those things. So the Muslim, we have knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are aware of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and what is the deen of Islam, but also then we're expected to commit to Islam by way of what we say and what we do. Our commitment is shown in our actions, in our deeds, and our speech. So if we claim that we're Muslim, we claim to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we claim to love the Prophet ﷺ, Muhammad ﷺ, then the person will say, prove this. Prove your love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Show me that you're different from anyone else. What makes you different from that person is the person commitment in applying what he has learned from Islam. So he mentioned the second matter is amal. So the Muslim is required to act in accordance to his religion. Regarding act or al-amal, they mention amal is the thamara. Ilm is a means to an end, and the end product, it should be righteous deeds. So you know something to do something right, so you can apply it. So what is required from knowledge, what comes with having this knowledge, then you need to put what you know into practicality. And that is your action and your deeds. Your knowledge needs to be backed up, and that is by way of your action. And that's the thing that distinguish. So the purpose behind knowledge is to act according to it. So the author rahimahullah, he mentioned that the person must act in accordance to his knowledge. Must act according to his knowledge. They mention in the explanation below, or the footnotes, they mention كل من عمل بلا علم فإنه يدل, that any person, the one who act without knowledge, then he'll fall into misguidance. The one who act without knowledge, then he will fall into error. Is more prone to fall into error. And from a religious based, that example of those who acted, they had zeal towards doing actions, doing righteous deeds, or what they deemed to be righteous deeds, but they did things without what? Ilm, without knowledge. So they fell astray. They did not achieve the goal that they intended, because they were carrying out doing of things, but it was not based upon ilm. And that's the example of those who are present and those who came before us, as they mention, those concerning an-Nasara. And also the second group of people whom they had knowledge of revelation, of halal and haram, but they did not act according to what they knew. So also they fell to the next, they fell astray. And those are the example of the Yahud. So the Muslim should try to avoid those two extreme, those two shortcomings, those two room for error. One, acting, doing something without knowledge, without prior knowledge. And second, not acting according to your knowledge. So after knowing something, how it is to be done correctly, but then you don't carry it out when you're required to do so, then those two paths are dangerous. And a Muslim, he follow the balanced middle path. He does things based upon knowledge, not based upon ignorance. So they mention an example regarding, so the Muslim try to know, then after knowing, then he applies it. The 13th author, rahimahullah, he mentions ad-dawa ilayhi, that inviting to ilm, inviting others to the deen of Islam. So the third thing is invitation to Islam. Ad-dawa, inviting others to Islam. And inviting ad-dawa, one, dawa is to mankind in general. Dawa, inviting others, that is for mankind in general. Muslim, whether those who are already Muslim and those who are not Muslim. The Muslim by way of dawah as a form of bayan, to clarify to them further their religion, as a form of tadhkir, as a form of reminder, wa ta'aleem, wa tawjih. So a dawah to the Muslim, it comes in a form of educating the Muslim about their religion, reminding the Muslim about their obligation and their responsibilities, guiding and directing them on doing things correctly. So that's a dawah towards, directed towards the Muslim. As for the non-Muslim, then it's to call them to the beauty of Islam, invite them to the beauty of Islam, explain to them the beauty of Islam. Whether they accept or not, then that's go back to them, and we cannot force them, but we should clarify to them Islam. The ulama, they mention also regarding ad-dawah, that has been understood that dawah is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the religion of Islam. So it's not about calling people to an individual other than the Prophet ﷺ. We don't call people to worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do not call people to worship Muhammad ﷺ, but to follow his example and his teachings, but not to worship him. Clear? So dawah is to invite to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is Islam and what it offers. And that dawah to Islam is regarding two main areas: tahqiq at-tawheed, to establish tawheed, and second, al-husnu mutaba'ah, and the person following the Prophet Islam correctly. So that's concerning a dawah, to try to achieve those two things: teaching the people at tawheed, educating the people about tawheed, and second, teaching the people about the Prophet Islam and following his example, and calling the people to follow the Prophet Islam example. Dawah is achieved. Dawah is achieved by speech and actions. So once they're giving dawah, In some cases, it could be by way of speech. You explaining to the person, talking to the person about Islam. And also, a part of the dawah, inviting us to Islam, is by way of our actions, our deeds. The type of example we set or show to others. So, when we look at dawah, think of those two things. Yes, sometimes they say by way of qara, it could be by way of giving a person material, but it falls into those two main areas, by way of speech or by way of action. So the Muslim try to be a good example. So some people, sometimes a person may gravitate, may have a likeness towards Islam, because how that Muslim, how he behaves, the Muslim conduct, being a good neighbor. In school, they said now as a Muslim, you're very polite. That you do not fight, you do not steal, you listen to instruction very well, you behave in class very well, you are hardworking in school. So the people, there's other kids will see you as someone who is an example. You're kind, you're helpful. So that person always, people will notice that that person is different. And that's what we want our children, how our children should be in school. Right? You heard what I just said? In school, what are the things that we mentioned? How you should be in school?
You should not steal. You should be
Not steal.
You should be helpful.
Helpful. Two from you.
You should be kind.
Kind.
Not fighting.
No, not fighting. Not fighting. Unless, both say generally, not fighting. Okay? Two others of the things expected. A, beside you. In school, how you should be in school to be a good example for others. The one beside you, help him. Yeah, you can speak out, yeah? Helpful, good.
Like being a role model.
Being a good role model. Okay, how? You be a good role model?
By doing the other examples.
By?
Doing the other examples.
Okay. Another.
Hard.
Working hard, very good. Working very hard. Now, so those are the things that we expect regarding said that becomes a part of, even as youngsters, you participating in giving dawah. You participating, and you may not even say a word to a person, but by way of how you function, as you just described, then that becomes your dawah.
But you have to have the niyyah that you're doing the dawah through your actions.
Now, so with it also with intention that what you're doing is also to be a model Muslim, so other people can learn from you. So said the emphasis is that dawah can be done by way of our actions and also by way of speech. Then the third matter that author rahimahullah he mentions is regarding, or the fourth, sorry, as-sabr al-adha fihi, that a person being patient upon whatever difficulties you may face. So in life, so remaining, having patience, endurance in the times when you're facing difficulties or difficulties that you may face in life. And each, we said, the test of life, it varies. It varies. After test of life for a youngster, getting up early on time to go to school. And not always being on the phone. And not always being on the phone. Omar, isn't it?
I'm taking down notes.
Okay, Jade, good. Taking note, okay, on the phone. So, using the phone wisely. Nam. So of the trials for people it varies. For adults, for youngsters, but everyone will go through their own tests. In school that person was the bully. Then at some point you may have to report him to the head teacher. But that for you is a test because he may want to fight you. So being patient. Studying hard, it requires patience, dedication. So you can achieve well in life. And so the ulama, they mention concerning as-sabr al-adha, in practice in Islam, to come to the masjid, it requires some form of patience to can do this all the time. Because the shaitan is out telling you, you don't have to go to the masjid. You don't have to go to the lesson. You don't have to attend Jummah. You can do this, you can do that. So being patient upon those things that you're facing in life, the trials of life, to push yourself. So the Muslim, of the things of those four matters, the Muslim have to be aware of and factor in that it requires regarding us being Muslim, that we have to can endure patience in time of difficulties. So the Muslim regarding life, when things are good, then he's what? He's thankful. The Muslim will experience good things in life. You did well in the exams. You just got a new job that you like. You just got married. You have children and they're doing well. So when you have those things, the good things in life, the Muslim is thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He shows gratefulness by, so you have to show his thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not think that it's just because it's my effort. He recognizes that everything goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he shows his thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in times of trial, then the Muslim, he shows patience. He becomes patient. Have to endure patience. When things not going right, then the thing is that they say not to throw the towel in, not to give up, but rather at that time try to be patient in what you're doing until the situation improves and gets better. So the ulama, they mention regarding as-sabr al-adha, regarding learning Islam, patience regarding applying Islam, practicing Islam. That sabr, it falls into three areas. One, sabr ala at-ta'ah, the person who can endure patience in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even to do good deeds, it requires patience, because sometimes it's doing that thing over and over again. Every day, 5 times a day, we have to pray. So it requires patience to do it one after another. So being patient in carrying out acts that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second, sabr al-ma'asi. The person have to have patience, show impatience in avoiding the don'ts. The thing that we're not supposed to do. That also requires patience. We're not supposed to do such and such thing. So to leave it sometimes require a sense of self-restraint, self-control. Because we know we're not supposed to do that thing. But what? Sometimes in a society, sometimes we're around others that they're doing that thing. And they're telling us what they're doing is seem to them fun. But we know that's not something I should be doing. So it requires a degree of patience to avoid that thing. Then the third type of patience is sabr al-adha. The person has to sometimes endure patience in times of difficulties. And we all go through it. We all go through it in different forms and ways. But sometimes you have to, in illness, sickness, loss of loved ones, seen people who are being harmed. So I have to know a time that in this matter, it's, as sometimes we may say, it's outside, I only can do so much, so I have to just be patient. Sometimes the only thing that you have is dua, but when you can assist, you assist. But in certain cases, sometimes you have to be patient in dealing with difficulties. So that's concerning question number 1, with some explanation. So before we go to question number 2, question number 1, we mentioned what are those 4 things that is compulsory that each person should know. Those 4 things are: 1, knowledge; 2, actions; 3, dawah, invitation, calling; 4, sabr. Aywa. The second question, ما الدليل على ذلك? What's the evidence? What's the proof for this? What's the evidence for all the things just mentioned? As we're a religion, it's a religion of evidence. A lot of the evidence, as mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Asr. Surah Al-Asr. All of the Huffaz in the masjid, from the shabab, from the youngsters, who memorize Surah Al-Asr. Surah Al-Asr, who memorize, stand, Surah Al-Asr. Wal-Asr. Aywa, what's your name? Abdul Rahman. Tafaddal. Surah Al-Asr. Al-Asr. Wal-Asr. Innal. أيوة. أي وعملوا الصالحات. أي طيب جيد. Anyone else? Surah Al-Asr. Okay. What's your name? Bilal. Okay, third person, and then we can move on. One more to make it odd. Stand. Bismillah. طيب جيد ممتاز. طيب جيد. So that's concerned. So the evidence, a proof from the Quran regarding all those 4 things that we just mentioned, those 4 points: knowledge, action, dawah, patience, is within Surah Al-Asr. All can be found in Surah Al-Asr. So I've mentioned wal-asr innal insana lafi khusr. So I mentioned that all by time, all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned by time, indeed all mankind is in a state of lost. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Then he mentioned إِلَّا الَّذِينَ, mentioned as an exception. So everyone is in a state of lost except those who has certain description. And they mention them as إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, the first of those who are exempt from destruction are 4 criteria. 1, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, those who believe. And that's regarding ilm of Allah. So those who believe that they possess knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His messenger, and also deen of Islam. Those who believe وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and they do righteous deeds, and that is action that are required from us. So to say I believe, then I have to put those things in practice by acting according to Islam and its rules and regulation. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, and also the person that they invite, cooperate with others regarding the haqq, which is invitation, doing things with others. And also upon sabr, that being patient through all this. So having all those things in place, the person who has belief, he acts according to his belief, cooperate with others upon the haqq, which is inviting others to Islam, and then fourthly, that the person is able to be patient. So Surah Al-Asr, it gives us the explanation or the evidence for all those points mentioned. What time is it now?
10 to 8.
The third question that it mentioned, ما الذي قاله إمام الشافعي رحمه الله في هذه السورة. So the thing that I mentioned, the next question is, what's the statement of Imam Shafi rahimahullah pertaining regarding the excellence of this surah? What was said by Imam Shafi rahimahullah regarding the excellence, the virtue of this surah? And Imam Shafi rahimahullah, who knows Imam Shafi? Man Imam Shafi? Who said Imam Shafi? Does it ring any bell? Who is this person, Ash-Shafi?
One of the main scholars, my fourth madhab.
Okay, one of the main scholars amongst the four madhahib. Aywa. Shafi, anything else? The name Shafi is generally, don't mention names. So now there's four madhahib, fiqhiyah. What are they? Elders, adults, the four madhahib.
Shafi, Maliki,
We have
Ahnaf.
Ahnaf, and there follows Abu Hanifa, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. Second,
Maliki,
Imam Malik,
Shafi,
Ibn Anas,
Shafi,
Imam Ash-Shafi, and the fourth, Muhammad ibn Idris Ash-Shafi rahimahullah, and the fourth,
Ahmad bin Hanbal.
Ahmed. So Ahmed, I mentioned other Hanabila, so Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal rahimahullah. So those are the four ai by way of their ai in matters concerning Aqidah and matters concerning fiqh. So and hadith in various science. So in this particular case, Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, one of those ulama of the past, that his views and opinion still remain, or his explanation of his interpretation on certain matters of Islam still remain with us today. After 1,000 years or more. So it shows concern that Islam, it preserve our heritage of the past. And among the heritage of Islam is the views and understanding of the ulama from past. So I mentioned that Imam Shafi rahimahullah, one of the renowned of the scholars of Islam from the past, but his views on certain matters of Islam still remain with us today. Not just him, but others. Not just him, also many others. As mentioned, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, another Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, Imam Layth ibn Sa'd, and many others. And those personalities, those individuals are used, looked upon as the ulama of Islam, and they're used as a means to help us, to help and to assist us in understanding Islam. So we look to them, try to benefit from them, have respect for them, as they are people who put effort in trying to make Islam more clearer for the Muslims in how we understand and also how we apply Islam. That's their purpose and was their goal and their effort. So because of that, the ulama of Shafi, Imam Abu Hanifa, Malik, the author of our book, and many others, we respect them, honor them, just as you honor your father. We look to them as people like our father. So we have, when we're with them, we show respect. We don't speak ill of them. Well, if we disagree with them, we don't curse and abuse them. Their views that they have on matters of Islam, then we look at it, give it some attention, but also we do not turn them into an object of worship. We do not look at these people as an object, a person to be worshipped, but as ulama who served Islam with their knowledge and study of Islam. Imam Shafi'i, in the answer that they mentioned, قال لو ما أنزل الله على خلقه إلا هذه سورة لكفتهم, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not reveal except for this surah to his creation, it would have been sufficient, this surah. So meaning that this surah, for what it contained, the meaning it goes, it will be sufficient if you were to understand this surah and live by it, because of the principles it gives. So we mentioned that it would be sufficient, it would have been sufficient for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reveal this surah based upon what it contains. We'll stop there inshallah ta'ala for tonight, because we're now coming at 5 minutes before 8. We do a overall, again, review of what was said today. I will ask the question and you will give the answers. With me? Agree upon? So, we've mentioned that this book is by way of question and answers. And in some cases, we might somewhat add from other sources in explaining certain things that are mentioned. As in the footnotes, some of the points, they somewhat elaborate more in some detail. We give a summary of those things. So the thing that we covered today, how many questions we covered today? How many questions we covered? How many? 3. So we just started, but we took close to an hour for only 3 questions. So the first of the question that we'll add, the first question that we mentioned, why we go about studying Tawheed and Aqidah. Why we go about studying this topic. Who can give the answer? One of the answer. Why we go about studying Tawheed. Why? I will say that it serves various reasons, of which one
So we can know Allah.
So we can know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aywa. Another reason why we study Tawheed.
That's why we are created. That's why we are created.
Because that's the purpose why we are created. So studying of Tawheed is concerned that we are created to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's one reason. Omar.
Tawheed allows the person to enter Jannah.
So with Tawheed, studying of our Tawheed, that's the thing that allows the person to enter Jannah. Of the reason the person will enter Jannah by possessing Tawheed. Third,
Expiate sins.
it expiates one sin, removal of sins. Then we mentioned why we go about the process of selecting books to be studied. Is there a process or there's no process? And we say with Islam, everything has process and a system. Structured system in Islam. We don't have things just haphazard, malfunctioning. So the Masjid system, rules and guidelines. So Islam, everything follow the same thing, a process. We enter the masjid, how to enter the masjid, how to leave the masjid, how we should behave in the masjid. So everything have a system in place to keep some form of order. So also studying is the same thing. In school there's a systemized way of studying and process. So we said that what's of the things to be considered in choosing a book? What are the things that we should look into?
We first look at the author of the book.
Very good, excellent. So the first thing is knowing the author of the book. Of the things, others?
If the author has a qualification of some sort.
Right, very good. Is the author qualified? His level of qualification? Another?
If the book is suitable for you, if it's too advanced or too below.
Excellent. Also, knowing concerning the suitability of that book. Regarding the audience, I would say some books are much more advanced. So finding the right book for the right audience.
If the author is living according to the Sunnah.
Excellent. That the author is a person of the Sunnah. Himself live according to the Sunnah. Excellent. So what I said actually, mashallah, was taken. Jade. When the student responds, as even the youngster responds, it gives motivation for the teacher. You show that the information have reached its target. And that also it shows the students are excellent students. And you don't have pen and papers today. So there's to be some food later on. That's the gift. We won't eat the adults, the children will eat first. But that's just my opinion. Then we mentioned, so obviously we mentioned that the author rahimahullah, he mentioned that there's 4 things that we should be, that's compulsory upon a Muslim to be aware of. What are those? What's the first?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. And what is defined as knowledge? What is said to be knowledge? What is this knowledge?
Knowing Allah.
3 things he mentioned. What are the first?
Knowing Allah.
Knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Knowing the Prophet.
So we say that.
And another?
Knowing Islam with evidence.
Knowing Islam with evidence. Knowing Islam with evidence. So that's concerning, I would say evidence. We say evidence, we say what is meant by evidence? Proof. I would say what are the sources of proof in Islam? What we use as a proof to say this is halal, this is?
Quran.
Quran being one. The Sunnah of the Prophet Islam. We mention a third. Beside you, young man. Al-Ijma. Excellent. Then we mention regarding the second matter of this 4. What's the second?
Amen.
Can I just take you back to Ijma?
Back to Ijma.
Is it some scholars say Ijma of the Sahaba or Ijma ulama? So what could you define Ijma a little bit? What do you mean by this?
In defining al-Ijma, Ijma generally defined as ittifaq al-ulama it's the agreement between the ulama of Islam after the death of the Prophet Islam on a Islamic matter in any time period. So they leave it open because in any time period, so from the time of the Sahaba up until Yawm al-Qiyamah. So we find ijma, things that have been agreed upon. So that's the definition of ijma. Repeat again, that ijma is an agreement between, they say ulama al-mujtahideen, mean the qualified, like mujtahid, like the highest level of scholarship amongst the ulama. Both said that, what's the word of that? The major scholars of Islam, an agreement between the major scholars of Islam after the death of the Prophet ﷺ on an Islamic matter at any time period, at any given time. So ijma relates to those things. So if things of ijma that occurred before us, and maybe ijma of things that have occurred in recent time, in our time, based upon maybe things that are of contemporary issues that the ulama may need to study and come to a conclusion. And some of those matters they may come to, they're in an agreement on that matter. That become an ijma that everyone now is binding upon them to follow. So the second matter of the four was the second actions, deeds, application of what we have learned. So that the thing that we try to avoid regarding knowledge, we mention one, the person who acts, does things but not based upon what? Knowledge. Is doing something but it is not based upon knowledge, then that we try to avoid. And if we were to find ourselves in a situation, something is required from us to do, but we thought we knew what to do, then after you have completed that thing, ask the imam, ask the sheikh to see if it was done correctly. Then we mention the third matter,
Dawah.
Ad-Dawah. So it's a dawah. What was it? Invite people. Who are we inviting people to?
Islam.
To Islam. We're inviting people to Islam. What are the ways that we can invite people to Islam? What are the ways we can use?
Clarify the meaning of Islam, but
So-
don't push them.
So clarification by way of speech, isn't it? So explaining to the person, sitting with the person, explaining to the person Islam by way of our speech. Now, then this is one of the ways that can be used to explain Islam and give dawah. What's the second way? By way of
Actions.
our actions. So it's a silent caller to Islam by way of our action, where people, by you being a good example in how you apply Islam and people observing this. So it's in the school as an example, also in our workplace, with our neighbors. So as we deal with the people, interact with people, then this is a form of dawah. We're polite as Muslim. We try to be honest when we deal with the people. We show good conduct and manners. So all of those things is a form of dawah.
As-sabr.
And the fourth,
Sabr.
Amr,
Patience.
patience. Amr is Amr, Amara,
Umar.
Ammar ibn Yasir. Okay, Ammar. So as-sabr. I would say sabr in. We say sabr can be placed in three areas, three matters. Sabr. What are those? Sabr regarding
Obedience to Allah.
Obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sabr in being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Second, sabr regarding what?
Staying away from sin.
Staying away from sin, avoiding sins. So sabr in doing the do's of Islam, and sabr in staying away from the don'ts. Today, it takes some sabr that for our sisters, our wives, and our mothers to go out in hijab, sometimes it requires from them, we see it as just wear the hijab. But in this environment, it can be require patience, because people sometimes abuse them verbally, physically. So it can dishearten a person. But when a person go out, so when for them to go the next time, it requires patience from themselves, that for them to do this. So sabr, because they don't want to be disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in not wearing the hijab when they go out. And also sabr in the third case of against those who might verbally attack you, upon the harms that sometimes people throw and do to Muslim. So you have to be patient. You don't react the wrong way. So sabr regarding those three areas: sabr, patience regarding obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being consistent in being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, learning, going to the masjid, fasting, and all those things. Sabr also in staying away from those things that are haram, forbidden upon us. And also, thirdly, sabr in facing the harms that sometimes we have to deal, and the trials that we have to deal with. So with that, inshallah, then we'll mention the last question, the third, regarding what is the statement of Imam Shafi rahimahullah regarding this particular surah and its virtue, which is that it is based upon its content. It will be sufficient if we were to follow the principles in this particular surah of Surah Al-Asr, and that was the dalil for all those four things. So that inshallah ta'ala we'll stop here. وبالله التوفيق وهذا السبيل ولا أهدى والحمد لله العالمين. What time was the adhan? Whenever I give you less than a time for adhan, you can always call it.